This is Chesapeake Motorworks. Today we moved the convertible and pulled the M52 from the donor car. Got the engine off the subframe. You can see it just sitting here. It's on these chains right now. This gantry crane is amazing, by the way. So we're going to go ahead and stick this on another one of these dolly wheels. I got the subframe completely back in. It's all bolted in. Brakes are even on. I got the car on the ground. As you can see, there's a big empty hole where the engine was. So now we're going to see how hard it is to move. It is not easy to move this. Depends on where you're pushing it. Coming over. The donor is in the shop, so we're going to get this up on the lift. Alright, I'm not really sure what's holding this car together. I almost don't want to get underneath of it. But look at that. That's, yeah, you can see into the car from here. Anyway, we're going to play exactly what is holding this car up in the air. And before you ask, yes, I do have a safety stand under it as well. But look at this. That's probably not good. You can see right up. I'm going to stick my entire fist up there. Wow. Yeah, so the answer is not very much. Chesapeake Motorworks here. If you like this content and want to see more, please like and subscribe. Anyway, status on this so far is got to get the diff out, but the axles are out. Drive shaft is out. Exhaust is off. Brakes on the front are off. Here's a quick trick that I use to pull these rear differential mount bolts. As you can see, the spare tire well comes pretty close to this, and the same problem happens on the E39s. So what we did is we took the 18mm socket that you would normally use to take this out, and when it's installed, what will happen is as that bolt works its way out, there isn't enough room to get the ratchet in here and pull this entire thing back out. So to fix that, we milled slots onto the side of a socket so that you can take a wrench, in this case a 21mm, and it goes right in, and it gets turned by the wrench instead. And that gives you all kinds of room to work with. We put the wrench on and just loosen it, which in this case I must not have broken this loose yet. Okay. So, you can just kind of do that. The diff is out, and this is surprising news. So I checked this, you can see on the side actually I've had pry bars on this. The reason is when I turn this, you can see both wheels turn the same direction, and then when I turn it by hand, both wheels turn the same direction. That's not how an open diff behaves. Sometimes it is, and if you hold one side and then try and turn the other side, it should be very easy to turn in the opposite direction. This differential does not do that. I put pry bars on it, and after putting a significant amount of force, I can get these to turn separately, which means this is in fact a limited slip differential, which is awesome. The goal today, or tonight, is to hopefully pull a subframe off of this. So I'm going to secure it from the top and drop the subframe. Now the reason for this is because this oil pan here appears to be leaking. I'm packing it up for tonight. We got the suspension part here off camera. Also on the other side, and I disconnected the power steering lines that are hooked to the steering rack. I also loosened the coupler going into the steering column. So at this point, the only thing that's actually holding the subframe itself on are these 4 bolts. I might...
RJ doesn't hurt himself, part 2.
Yeah, I might need you on this at some point. We'll see.
There you go. Perfect.
Time to drop the oil pan on this. Got a oil pan gasket to put in, and also an oil pump nut to safety wire in place. I'm installing the oil pump nut, and it gets torqued to 25 Newton meters. It's left-hand thread, so I had to buy a different torque wrench that will work on left-hand threads. So you can see it's on 25 Newton meters right now. Then we'll install the safety wire next. And I'm gonna link a video for how I learned how to do this. It's done. Hopefully I did that right. Pulling the M52 out of the 328i. This is by far the sketchiest thing I've done in quite a while. The engine's only being held up by this brace in the front, and when you come down, you can see it's not being held by anything. And it's being braced in the rear by that block of wood and that metal like exhaust hanger basically. So the transmission cross member is unbolted on both sides, and I did that by getting underneath the car with jack stands in the way of the lift so it can't crush me, and just staying out of the way and being really careful. I pushed the transmission up into the car so that when I took the bolts out I made sure there's zero pressure on them whatsoever, and I left some threads in, so by the time I got to the end I knew that all the weight was actually on the jack. So now we're going to drop the lift down a little bit. And what that's going to do is allow us to place the engine, or rather the oil pan, on this wood, the dollies. And if we do this very carefully, we can kind of maneuver it as we go down progressively. I need to reduce the height of my jack. You can see it's coming down. Now we can continue to go down on the lift, just one little bit at a time. Okay, and this is how we're going to get the engine out. Okay. The transmission is down. I kind of lowered it onto this jack, and the engine oil pan is actually sitting on this block of wood right now. So at this point we need to remove these coolant hoses and then try to pull this body off the engine and transmission without it kind of falling over. I put this piece of E60 M5 dry shaft underneath the motor mount on this side. That should keep the engine from tilting over. The two hoses we need to disconnect are this one on the left, and there's one underneath you can't see, but on this control body here, it's kind of a triangle shape, so there's two up top and one on the bottom. The bottom one needs to be disconnected. So what I'm going to do now is start to try and raise this up. Alright, I'm going to stop. I think the engine's tilting forward. Yeah, the transmission is kind of riding up into the transmission tunnel. Okay, she's out. So obviously this is a little bit different than when we did it with the subframe. So there's no subframe in the front this time to keep everything even, which is why this jack is under here. And what needs to happen is a piece of wood needs to go in underneath like that, and then we can let the jack down and hopefully it won't fall over on us. Yeah, like that. So now the jack's not holding up. We're going to be doing a bunch of maintenance on this while the engine's out. So that's like the valve cover, the intake manifold gaskets, all that good stuff, because it's way easier to do right now than it is when it's back in the car.